Bonjour or bonsoir. Welcome to another audio voice recording from yours truly, Richard of the New Manchester YouTube channel. And before I get into this video, there was a big nasty storm that happened yesterday. It was raining cats and dogs outside, heavy rain, lots of thunderstorms, and this happened yesterday, which was the last day of April, April the 30th. That's right. The weather was very rough yesterday. Windy. I think it wasn't windy. Like it was just raining really, really hard. Heavy rain, thunderstorms. A possible flash flood watch for a lot of counties in eastern Texas or northeastern Texas. I think southwestern Arkansas and probably in northwestern Louisiana. So so it was some very rough weather around where I live. And also it's today. It's very quiet outside, and there's going to be some more heavy rain and thunderstorms on the way later on today. So about time I get done doing this audio voice recording, the storm is going to come back. So that's all I got to say on that, and let me get started on what I want to talk about or read about on this audio voice recording. Okay, I found something from veryinformed.com, and it's titled, "Why Are French People So Rude? 11 Reasons Why." And it was posted on the 9th date of August of 2022. And it's from John Richardson. And this is something about John Richardson. John Richardson is a lover of knowledge in all forms. He has spent over 15 years as a high school teacher, instructing students in history, geography, mathematics, and more. Okay, and he's going to talk about why French people are rude. And this is directed towards Americans who feel that the French are being rude to them. You know, I'm an American. You know, I got an open mind, and to all of you who are new to this channel, I went to France on a Northern European cruise, a cruise ship, back in 2017, July of 2017. Sailed from Southampton in England in the United Kingdom to Belgium, Belgique, Norway, Germany, Deutschland, and France, République Française. And when I was in France, or the République Française, when I was in that country, I was in a city called Le Havre, France. It was a gorgeous city, and I noticed the people didn't wave at me or anything, because I noticed like the culture was different. You know, I was with my sister. Well, originally it was going to be my parents and my sister and me walking through Le Havre, but my parents decided to go back on a cruise ship because they don't like where they are, and they just went back on the cruise ship. So they left. Yeah, my parents went back to the cruise ship, so it was just me and my sister. We walked through here. You know, during the time I didn't speak a lick of French, and I didn't say anything to anybody. So my sister was like, and this was during Bastille Day. I didn't know what Bastille Day was. And yeah, and my sister was walking to souvenir shops. She didn't say bonjour. I didn't say it either because I didn't know the language. So, I didn't know anything. I wasn't being rude. I just didn't know because, I didn't speak a lick of French. All I spoke was English, and that's about it. But now I speak a little French now, so if I go back to France, I probably won't have that problem. But I'm probably gonna run in some issues. And, I'm just got to deal with them. Got to just deal with how the people perceive me as. But I'm not trying to make people like me or something. I'm not expecting people to please me, and I'm not expecting them. I'm not expecting to please them. It is what it is. So I just got to understand different cultures. My sister was rude. She don't care about cultures of different countries. All she cared about was going to souvenir shops and buying a lot of junk. And she's a hoarder, by the way. She liked to hoard stuff. You know that TV show that's called Hoarders? My sister is one of those people. So all she cared about was buying useless junk that she doesn't need, like purses and whatnot. So yeah, well, I'm gonna go talk about my time in Le Havre, France, after I get done reading about why are French people so rude. 11 reasons why. So let me get right down to this. Everyone has heard that the French are rude, but is it true? There have been various accounts that the French have an attitude towards Americans. The French do indeed have an international reputation of being rude. I have examined 11 reasons French people are so rude, and I would like to share them with you. Why are French people so rude? Number one, the French want to be greeted. If you do not greet the French with a friendly bonjour, they will think you are rude, ignorant, impatient, uneducated. Greetings in French will help get you an in to engage in conversation with the French. Greeting people with bonjour demonstrates that you have respect for the people you meet. This rule applies to wait people, taxi drivers, and any help you receive in the French shops. When each conversation is over, you should say merci. A polite thank you in French will go a long way to showing that you have manners. You want to be courteous and cordial. These are the two words you need to remember when you are speaking with French people. You want to use bonjour and merci as often as possible and work them into even the briefest conversations, or you may get an attitude from the French. Number two, French people switch to English. You may have gone to France and encountered a situation in which the French switched to English during the conversation when you were trying to speak French. This change can come across as being rude. Should this situation happen to you, it would be best not to switch to English. Be willing to try, and the French may see that you are attempting to practice speaking French. If this happens, they will tend to guide you as you show them you do not need English to communicate. If they still switch back to French, they may just be trying to make you feel more comfortable. Number three, the same questions every day. When you are a tourist, you will almost certainly have many questions for the natives in your geographic location. However, you need to remember that Parisians are often asked the same questions all the time. Where is the Eiffel Tower? Where is the La Rouge? How safe is the area? How do I get around the city? French individuals tend to be bombarded with the above questions constantly. When you are asked a busy French person for help during your time in Paris, be aware that they may not be so keen on giving you the answer. This person may have just answered the same question for somebody else about 30 seconds prior. When you ask a French person a question, try to be quick and get to the point. French people may quickly lose interest and not talk to you. After all, millions of people visit Paris each year, and the French may be tired of answering questions. Number 4, be prepared to be interrupted. French people will often interrupt you to correct your poorly constructed French. French people may get offended when you do not know how to speak the language perfectly. French people will often correct your mistake, which comes across as rude. It may also seem arrogant, self-serving, disrespectful, tactless. Most Americans do not care if someone knows English, and Americans do not consider to think that everyone should learn English. However, when it comes to the French take great pride in their native tongue. French individuals can be extremely bold when it comes to overcorrection. Number 5, no small talk. French individuals do not small talk. Parisians do not seem to mind the uncomfortable silence that comes with not knowing what to say. For the French, it is awkward for the eager tourist just suddenly to strike up a conversation. French individuals are not always trying to please people, and Parisians will not often go out of their way to speak to make someone feel comfortable. However, Paris can be compared to any other busy city like New York, where people do not have time to stop and chat. Number 6, shop workers do not care. This claim may be a broad statement, but Parisian shop workers do not tend to ask if you need help. French salespeople do not typically work on commission or tips. French shop workers are laid back and do not jump at the chance to attend to the customer. Parisian workers usually cater to the notion that if you need help, you will ask. It is a bit of a culture shock going from the over-hideous shop workers in America to seeing how it is done in France. Americans take it as rude, but it is simply the Parisian way. Number 7, rude waiters. It is known that French servers are often rude to people eating in their restaurants. Do not expect the server to come over and check if you need water 20 times in 20 minutes. Wait persons in France often give your wine glass a generous pour, but do not return to see if you need more throughout your meal. French servers do not usually work for tips. French people do not like to have their dinner disrupted and their conversations interrupted so the waiter can see, how are you doing? It is simply not Parisian to find this occurrence. French servers may also take their sweet time to get you the bill. All these things seem rude to Americans who are used to being catered to during their meal. Number 8, French people like to complain. French individuals will complain about Americans every chance the French get. You may often hear them refer to Americans as being boorish. French people think Americans are rude because Americans do not understand French customs. Americans are so used to their way of doing things that Americans do not think of other customs. Many Americans only know English. Americans do things much differently than the French. French people tend to complain about the lack of a culture of the Americans. Number 9, different politics. French people feel that Americans do not study the platforms of who they vote for. The French take their time to learn each candidate and choose according to whom they think is best. French citizens feel Americans do not take politics seriously and that we choose based on the party instead of voting for the best man or woman for the job. Number 10, road rage. There are lots of rude drivers in Paris, and the French can be intense about the driving climate of their country. There is a lot of swearing, construction, detours, traffic jams. Even though you may be able to say the same thing about America, the French are known for their fiery passion, and their passion is placable when the French display road rage. Americans are taught defensive driving, or else Parisians typically drive like crazy people. French drivers tend to be more aggressive when navigating the roadways. Number 11, Pacific topics are off limits. French people do not share personal details of their life the way Americans do. French individuals will be friendly, but these topics are off limits regarding their privacy. It can come across as rude not to share. It is only because of what we Americans are used to. It may just be a difference in the culture of the people. It may be harder to make friends with people in France. Conclusion: French individuals can come across as rude for many reasons. Perhaps they set their expectations too high for people visiting their country. This group of people will often expect the visitor to understand their language, customs, and attitudes, and may not like it when tourists seem obvious to the culture. Okay, and that's it. So this is very eye-opening to me. Very, very, very eye-opening. Yeah, I know about the aggressive drivers in France. I heard stories from people, and I watched it on TV through Amazon Fire TV, through a YouTube video on a YouTube channel. There was this guy who lives in the Netherlands. I think his name is Keen, wherever his name is. He lives in the Netherlands, and he talks about how much he loves to drive around in Europe and the different driving laws in countries in Europe. Okay, he was driving on an auto route in France. Okay, he was in the slow driving lane, and someone overtook him or did some overtaking in the overtaking lane to overtake him because he was in the slow driving lane, and that person signaled and moved back into the slow driving lane to resume keeping to the right. All right, they left their blinker on when they made the lane change, and they left the blinker on for quite a while. And the guy who was driving who owned the who owned the YouTube channel and made that video about how people drive in France. He said, "Well, you're in the okay. You just moved back into the slow driving lane after you overtook me. Why you left the blinker on?" And he was a guy from the States, or he was from Canada, or either of the two countries, the U.S. or Canada. And also heard stories that my dad and my sister, my mom were in the south of France, and some guy who was driving the bus backed this bus up and backed it into a car and hit the car, and he stopped and put the bus in drive, backed the bus, who was a guy who was a bus driver, backed the bus into the car and hit it, put the bus in drive and drove away. I think my dad told me this. I said, "Well, the authorities would go and get them." And the driving laws in France are very, 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 very strict, ridiculously strict. Yeah, I think countries with the strictest driving laws in Europe are the United Kingdom and France. I think Italy has loose, lax driving laws, so their driving laws are very relaxed. France, the driving laws in France are very, very strict, and the driving laws in the UK are strict as well. And I'm looking at the United Kingdom. I want to talk about the United Kingdom for a little bit. In the UK, if you're caught driving without insurance or driving recklessly, you will be. I think you will be arrested. You would have some points taken from your driver's license, and you will have a 3-year driving ban. You will be banned from driving for 3 years. And I think Australia has that too. So yeah. Really, really, really strict driving laws. And as strict as the driving laws in France, people in France are still doing road rage and driving crazy, are being aggressive when they're road users. And it costs a lot of money to get a driver's license, and learning how to drive will take a very long time because you got strictness and discipline in all of that. So they want you to be a really good driver / road user. Yeah, and French people are very private people, and there's some topics that are off limits. They're off limits to you, so you can't talk to them about personal stuff like how much money they make and other personal stuff. So what's personal to them is personal to them, and yeah, and I respect people's privacy. They want to be private, and also in France, you can't talk about who you voted for, so you got to keep it to yourself. And plus, I heard this from an American who went to France, and he said that if you trash talk the police or curse at the police, they will punish you, and they will view this as ourlage. Ourlage. That's French for outrage. So you'll be severely punished if you curse out or insult the police. That's right, you will be punished if you insult the police in France. And also, going back to voting, when it comes to voting for someone for president of France, they have this thing called 3 rounds, and the candidates go through 3 rounds. And the French people vote for people who will do the job, who are willing to do the job, who are up for the job, not about what party they're from. In America, people just vote for someone based on, the party that they're from. And here in the U.S., even though I didn't vote for Donald Trump or Kamala Harris, it's like this. I look at candidates who are good for the job, who are up for the job, and I view Bernie Sanders as someone who is up for the job as president of the United States. You know, yeah, I look at people like Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden. These people aren't up for the job to be president of the United States. And Bernie Sanders is up for is up for that job. He's perfect for that job because what he preaches about. Yeah, and rude people, and this is how I'm going to deal with rude people. People who are being rude to you, you just look the other way. People who are rude, who interrupt you when you're talking, you just got to look the other way, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to just look the other way when someone's being rude to me. And I just can't complain about it because I'm going to deal with rude people regardless of what country that I go to, or regardless of what part of the US that I go to, or what part of Canada that I go to. Small talk. I don't care about small talk, and yeah, if I ask a French and also if I ask a French person a question that he or she heard from other Americans, I'm just going to just back away from them and just leave them alone, or yeah, so it is what it is. And this is something I need to do when I move to France. When I go to a shop, I gotta say bonjour or bonsoir. Or if I want to get past someone, if I want to get past someone in a crowd of people, I'll just say this: pardon, excusez-moi, pardon, excusez-moi. So I gotta say that. Yeah, I know little bits of French here and there, but that's not enough, and that's not gonna help me anyway. And also what I want to add is there's someone who speaks French who watches the videos on my YouTube channel, and he keeps quiet and he doesn't comment. I got a comment from him in the past, and I can't say his name, but I'll just put it up on the screen so for all of you to see. And he said this to me: "You're a good-looking man. You should give it a shot of going out and meeting a woman. And time flies, and you will regret it later. You'll be kicking yourself." And also, he asked me, "What's that white spot on your chin?" When I did a video that was terrible, and I deleted it from this channel. It was a terrible video. It attracted a troll. And I said this to him in French. I got a translator and said some things in English and translated to French. Then I typed it down in the comments on that video in French. And he was impressed by giving me a like and said that, "Oh, I'm impressed with your French. Your French is very impressive. Do you have a translator?" And I said this to him in French. Yes, I have I'm using a translator. So I did it to see if he was French, and I was and I was correct. So yeah. So, I see how the French are, well, the Parisians. I don't know how people are in other parts of France. So, yeah, so if I'm in France, so I gotta do all these, so I gotta do these things to communicate with people in France from the high school teacher. So I gotta take that and implement that. So I don't want to go into a shop and don't say nothing. I gotta go and say bonjour. And I'm very timid and shy, so I gotta speak up loud. So yeah. Also, going back to me being going to France, Le Havre, a city in northwestern France, in the Normandy region or Normandy. Okay, I was walking around with my sister in that city, and some people whizzed past me and my sister on bicycles, and went to a street corner deep into the city, and there was a woman there was some people who were selling things, rotisserie chicken and clothes. And a woman comes walking to us and saying something to us in French, and we didn't understand, so we walked away. We didn't say anything because, well, me and my sister, we both didn't speak. We both don't speak French. I think it's because I wore a bright red hoodie with Canada on the front of it. Yeah, I wore that along with some shorts, and I don't know what I was thinking while I was wearing all of that, because I was thinking that it was going to be cold in France, and I didn't look at the weather report. So that's all on me. So that's all on me. So that was kind of stupid, or as the French would say, stupid. And I can say that to aggressive French drivers. I'll say this: stupide, la stupide. So yeah, um, yeah. Okay. Also, before I end this audio recording, okay, wow. I remember my sister. Before we both went back to the cruise ship, um, and going back out again to buy some souvenirs for my father. My father forced me to buy some souvenirs with my euros, souvenirs for him. Okay, my sister was getting some water at a hamburger stand, and okay, a homeless guy was saying something in French, and he came walking by between me and this bald headed guy. There was a guy with a bald head. He had tattoos. Okay, this homeless guy who was French, he was speaking French. He come walking by. I didn't know what he was saying in French. He was yelling and walking by. And when he walked by, he kept yelling in French, and he just walked away. And the bald-headed guy turned to me and did a hand gesture by twirling by taking his finger on his right hand and twirling around his left ear, saying that the guy was crazy. And I did this back to him. He looked at me and shook his head and said yes, which was funny, which was hilarious. And I got to be careful doing hand gestures because I might insult some people. And he did it because he knew that I didn't speak. I guess I didn't speak French, or he just doing this not to say anything. So yeah. Well, that's all. So basically, okay, that's all I gotta say in this video. So if any of you don't care about this, I don't care. I really don't. If you don't care about this audio recording. So yeah, all right. I'm finished. So more videos to come in the future. So yeah, all right. This is Richard of the New Manchester YouTube channel saying signing out. Cheers and au revoir. Merci, merci beaucoup. Au revoir.